I did.
We panic when our GPS cuts out for half a minute. Meanwhile, the Vikings were out there crossing entire oceans with nothing but the sky, the birds, and a gut instinct honed by nature. No compass, no charts, definitely no forecast app. But somehow, they found North America, 500 years before Columbus even set sail, and they pulled it off in hand-built ships crafted from timber, tar, and sheer willpower. Let's rewind. It's the year 1000 AD. You're a Viking named Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, who was so infamous for eliminating people, he got kicked out of 2 countries. So yeah, family reunions were probably interesting. Your dad founded Greenland. You're about to change history. Leif grew up in Greenland, a place so cold and unforgiving, your eyelids might freeze shut if you blinked too slow. But instead of staying put, Leif wanted more. Not riches, not gold, land, resources, opportunity, the kind of opportunity that doesn't show up on a map because maps didn't exist. So, how do you find a whole new continent without even knowing it's there? Turns out, you just listen. A merchant named Bjarni Herjolfsson had gotten blown off course a few years earlier and accidentally saw strange forested shores to the west. He didn't land, didn't even explore, just told people, yeah, I saw some trees. Pretty weird. That was enough. Where others saw a mistake, Leif saw a mission. He gathered 35 men, stocked up supplies, and sailed toward the unknown. No maps, no compass, just a gut feeling, passed down stories, and a whole lot of guts. No backup plan. No rescue boats, just boldness and belief. So, how did they actually do it? Here's where it gets amazing. The Vikings were like the human Swiss Army knives of the medieval world. Tough, smart, and weirdly clean. They bathed way more than other Europeans. But their biggest superpower? Navigation. Without instruments, without written charts, just pure observation. First tool? The sky. Vikings used the sun during the day and the stars at night. But what if it was cloudy? That's where it gets even cooler. They might have used something called a sunstone, a crystal like Iceland spar, to detect the position of the sun even when it was hidden behind clouds. Modern tests show it actually works. Think of it like a natural pair of X-ray glasses, but for weather. At night, they followed the North Star and even memorized constellations to track direction. Modern sailors still learn this today as backup training in case electronics fail. Imagine doing all of that without even knowing what a compass was. But the sky wasn't enough. Vikings also read the sea itself. They could interpret ocean swells, wave angles, and color changes to detect nearby land. They watched how clouds formed over islands. They studied wind shifts, and they released birds, like ravens or gulls, into the air. If the bird flew straight and didn't return, land was ahead. If it circled and came back, you were in the middle of nowhere. Nature was their instrument panel. Each wave was a signal. Every cloud was a clue. Basically, they built a mental map of the Atlantic Ocean using only nature. Let that sink in. Try navigating rush hour without Waze. Now, imagine doing it across oceans. And the ships? Oh man. These were not your average fishing boats. Viking longships were technological masterpieces, fast, flexible, and terrifying. They were built with shallow hulls so they could glide across open ocean and sneak up rivers. That meant they could land anywhere. Beaches, fjords, even inlets barely deep enough for a canoe. These weren't just warships. They were Swiss Army ships. Forget GPS. These guys had mobility. They could row or sail depending on weather. They could even carry the ship across land if needed. And every piece of the ship was made from natural materials: wood, animal fat, linen, and iron rivets, crafted to survive brutal conditions. It wasn't flashy. It was functional, and that made it powerful. Some ships were so well designed they'd pass a modern seaworthiness test. All that preparation paid off. Because when Leif's crew did hit land, it changed history. They didn't just hit land once. They kept going, chasing signs of something better. First, they reached a place of jagged rock and icy winds. The sagas called it Helluland, land of flat rocks. Most likely Baffin Island in today's Canada. Harsh, cold, rocky, not ideal. They didn't stay long. Next, they pushed further south. The trees grew taller. The wind felt different. They called it Markland, land of forests. Probably Labrador better, more wood, wildlife, resources, but still not quite paradise. Leif wanted more. Then they found it, Vinland. Vinland had salmon-filled rivers, grapevines, and milder weather. Today, most experts agree it was around Newfoundland. And this wasn't just a quick visit. They built houses, stockpiled resources, and stayed through the winter. They didn't just survive, they settled. They didn't just discover the land, they used it. Smartly, efficiently, boldly. And here's the thing, they didn't take over. They didn't start building castles. They traded, explored, and eventually returned home, with news of a bountiful place across the sea. No invasion, no conquest, just curiosity and craftsmanship, which raises a question, why didn't they stay? Short answer, it was complicated. There were conflicts with local indigenous groups, logistical problems, and the sheer difficulty of maintaining supply lines across the ocean with no ports or backup. They didn't have colonies, they had outposts, but that doesn't make it a failure. It makes it a remarkable achievement for the time. Even more remarkable, they didn't use gold or silver to build wealth. They used furs, iron, walrus ivory, and freedom. They found value in the wild, not in vaults, but in movement. Viking wealth wasn't in coin. It was in connections, massive trade networks that stretched from Greenland to Constantinople, from Russia to North Africa. They built power by moving goods, not hoarding them. Think of it like the original side hustle economy, except instead of Etsy shops, you had Arctic fox pelts and hand-forged axes. They didn't just trade items, they traded stories, culture, and innovation. And all of this without banks, GPS, or Google Translate. They negotiated in dozens of languages, using trust, reputation, and shared risk. The Viking world ran on barter, alliances, and boats. And they didn't leave credit scores, they left sagas. You might be wondering, but how do we know all this actually happened? In 1960, archaeologists discovered ruins in Los Meadows, Newfoundland. Viking-style homes, iron-working stations, artifacts from 1000 AD. Then, in 2021, scientists tested wood from the site. Turns out the trees had been cut down in exactly 1021 AD. That's the earliest proven date for European presence in North America. Not folklore, not legend, just facts buried in soil and wood. Vinland wasn't a myth, it was real. The sagas were right all along. The Vikings didn't leave behind palaces or piles of gold. They left behind something more powerful. Proof that you can reshape the world with nothing but instinct, movement, and grit. They crossed oceans without maps, built power without empires, and survived using nature alone. That's already genius. But what if I told you that's nothing compared to how they got rich? From zero, no banks, no credit cards, and definitely no crypto. So just click this video right here. 7 Viking tricks to get rich from zero, and see how they turn trade and survival into real power. Some of their tricks, still smarter than most modern hustle gurus.